A few things I just want to get out of the way. One thing, I mentioned this on Facebook, but I'm going to mention it now because this is going to be broadcast, obviously, on YouTube and anyone else in general, because I always get sent... one thing I get sent most... This is happening almost on a weekly basis. There's a website on the internet, obviously, as opposed to where else, I don't know, but it's called Rational Wiki. Wikipedia of rationality, apparently. Yes, some atheist neckbeard on the internet has decided to start, cataloguing how rational people are. And I'm constantly and I don't know what mine says in full, I've never read it. But it's obviously not too flattering, because I'm constantly being sent links to it. I just want to make this clear, I couldn't give less of a shit what some pretentious arsehole who has appointed themselves the arbiter of all things rational on the internet, as if that's going to be a hard, long, big sell, isn't it? I mean, you'd struggle to find it. You'd struggle to find some rationality on the internet, but I don't care what they have to say. I'm pretty sure the person who wrote it doesn't even have the stones to get on a camera or get on a recording and get themselves and let other people judge them. Also, and people forget this with rationality, you're only rational by your own standards. Anyone can say, oh, I'm very rational, I'm completely rational. Well, of course you can say that. Everyone thinks they're fucking rational, don't they? The same way everyone thinks they're fucking logical. For all I know, the person who wrote my entry is as mad as a box of frogs, and I have no interest in it. I think my beard deserves its own fucking rational wiki page, but there you go. I suppose I should start by talking a little bit about this Elliott Rodgers thing, because, oh god, it's the crap you see going round, and it's one of these debates. I say debates. It just brings out. Can I just get some things clear about Elliott Rodger? The guy was a fucking loser. I don't care what anyone has to say about. This is. The guy was anyone who writes anyone who writes something called My Life, an autobiographical tome, and it's 141 pages long. Crap, my 6-year-old niece could write more than that for her frigging life story. The guy's a fucking loser, and there's this little cult of sympathy and worship around him. That's developed. It's the same that happened with the Columbine killers and with Anders Breivik. Right, these guys are fucking losers, and I don't care whether they're going to be remembered. Remembered for what? If all you can be remembered for is destroying and killing things, what's the fucking point? Be forgotten, please. I'm sick of it, right? And of course, this whole thing just sparks up the whole, debate, if you want to call it that, surrounding sexism and feminism, and I want to make it clear, there is no fucking debate. Let's get this clear. There is no debate surrounding this issue. There never has been. In fact, I'm going to sum up the entire online sexism debate in 6 seconds. Are you ready? Well, I'm not going to do it. Former WWE World Champion CM Punk is going to do it. You ready? Go.
You have a vagina! You have a vagina!
That's it. That's pretty much all you need to know. That's all the fucking... I'm just sick of it. It's like... And this anti-feminist bandwagon picks up. I'm not going to join it, because I know lots of feminists. I've dated lots of feminists. They're not all these big, fat, hairy munters who sit there, plotting to come about some sort of, gynocracy where they're going to put men in sort of, concentration camps and commit some kind of Holocaust. I'm not worried if that happens, if there is some kind of feminist overthrow, women end up... I'm not going to be worried. I mean, look at me. I'm clearly breeding material. I'm a brood stag, I'll be having a great time, I'll be getting plenty of snoo, don't you worry about me. They're not all these fucking evil, horrible people, and I'm not jumping on this anti-feminist bandwagon just because it's the cool... And that's the funny thing, is we always end up talking about feminists. It's like, this guy... this guy was yes, he was obviously a misogynist, right? And don't just give me this crap, oh, he just snapped. He planned this for months. You don't just snap and then plan something for months. He wrote an entire fucking manifesto about it. And being mentally ill doesn't, I don't know how mentally ill he was. I'm not a fucking expert, but apparently everyone else is always, they're always a fucking mental health expert. coming around and just telling us on the internet what people are and what they're not. And it's easy to dismiss this guy as insane. Let me just say something, right? There are lots of people out there with lots of different mental illnesses, including people with psychopathy, who manage to get through their lives without killing people. And I don't really know one mental illness for which misogyny is a symptom. But there are also lots of people who don't have a mental illness, who are raging bigots and with extremely narrow-minded prejudices, and they kill lots of people too. So let's just get this straight. Both things matter. Both things matter. You can't just sit there and dismiss. You can't sit there and pick and choose and say, just because this guy comes along and it's inconvenient for you to sit there. But it's the funny thing is, we're still talking about feminists. This guy was a misogynist who wanted to kill lots of women. And I know, before anyone says, oh, but he killed men too. He killed men because they were in the way. He couldn't get to the sorority house to commit the massacre he wanted. Right? They were just things stepping. They were speed humps in his way. That's why he killed them. It's not because he was some equalitarian. It's like some egalitarian mass murder when it come to gender, right? But that's the funny thing. You end up talking about feminists no matter what. You got a misogynist who's gone and killed in massacre, who wanted to go and kill a load of women because they didn't, because they turned him down, and we're talking about feminists, and yet if this guy was was a woman who killed lots of men, we'd be sat here talking about how evil feminists are. And they're not. Yes, there are mentalists out there. Of course there are mental feminists out there. I've had to deal with them myself in the past. Anyone who's watched me long enough will probably remember that. But I'm not going to sit there. I've dated enough feminists. I've known enough feminists. And let's be honest, people go on about women being gold diggers. How fucking unambitious a gold digger do you have to be to take an interest in me? How much do you have to fucking fail as a gold digger to take a fucking interest in me? It's pathetic, okay? It's not to say I don't sympathise with, Elliott Rodgers to an extent. I mean, I'm a massive arsehole. I just wish women would leave me alone, And I try hard as I can to be the biggest arsehole I can be in the hope that women will leave me alone. Right, but they don't, I mean, I'm just saying, I'll say this to all the women out there now. Can't we just be friends? Can we just not be friends? I'm tired of you lot fuck-zoning me. Okay? However, the most interesting commentary on the Elliott Rodgers thing I saw came in the form of a Facebook comment that I saw. This is genuinely true. I'm going to read this to you word for word. If someone would have just sucked this guy's dick, this would have been avoided. Ladies, suck a dick, save a life. There are two things about that. One, it is eerily reminiscent of an actual satirical video I did a couple of years ago about Rebecca Watson. And the other funny thing is, that was written by a woman. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is a good thing, but I don't think we should discount her as some complete nutter. I'm not going to give out her details, because you'll just go and try and request her a friend on Facebook. And she's already getting hassled enough by me. People laughed at Galileo and Ron Paul. So let's not discount this theory. I'm just saying, give stuff a go, is all I'm saying, Interesting story coming out is a leader of the Jobbik party it's an anti-Semitic far-right party in Hungary. The leader of the party has just found out he's Jewish. That's interesting, isn't it? And not only has he found out he's Jewish, he's immediately converted and he's moving to Israel. So it shows how dedicated he was, really, to the cause. It shows how the mindset of these people. This happened a lot. There was that guy, I think, on was it Trisha? They found out he was 14% black. And he got, kicked out of his organisation, ran out of his town, and good. I say good to him, I think the best way to deal with this is to start teaching kids at school, teach them genetics. Then they can have a DNA test at school, and then they'll find out they can trace their own DNA. And then by the time they're old enough, they won't even have had to buy into this bollocks. Of course there'll be conspiracies surrounding it, and maybe some people will find it nefarious about state schools doing genetic, testing, but it's a way to teach people about genetics, to stop them falling into this fucking crap. I traced my family, my tree, I traced mine all the way back to Africa, around the area where now Nigeria is. And I'm going to take. I think it's interesting. I'm actually considering, as I come from, I've traced my family back to Africa. I'm considering slave reparations. Just got to find the bastard responsible. Sporting news. This shows the dire state that we're in with the England. The World Cup is coming up. Women are getting ready, preparing their bunkers, and the World Cup is approaching. And apparently, England have been getting some special tips and hints, and even some sort of scientific guidance in how to win the World Cup from, and are you ready, Stephen Hawking. Not making this up, ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Hawking. This kind of shows the level that we're at. It's a good job Glenn Hoddleston is in charge, because he got fired for actually saying that, people who were disabled obviously had done something bad in a previous life. He would know all about spastics. He picked enough for the team. He was when he was in charge. But Stephen Hawking is given. I don't know what Stephen Hawking's formula is to help England win the World Cup. Presumably, it's gaffer tape the ball to your head and put a V8 motor in your wheelchair. Interesting thing, another interesting story coming out this week. A man has been jailed for 5 years when it was revealed that he had a fetish for sticking his penis in cow manure, and he was found lying in a field naked with his dick in a cow pat. And all I've got to say, folks, is, we were told this by the fundamentalist Christians. This is what happens when you let the queers get married. Joey Barton, former footballer. Speaking of footballer, Joey Barton, former Manchester City and QPR and Newcastle footballer, and all-round, violent nutter, was actually on UKIP. It was actually on Question Time and offended a woman from UKIP, describing UKIP as being ultimately seen by people as the best bunch from a set of ugly four girls, which isn't the most. It isn't the most dignified way of putting it, but the guy has got a point. The tragedy is, people will say, why is Joey Barton on Question Time? And yet he made more sense than most people. And interesting, frivolous story about UKIP this week was UKIP voters are apparently, in a study, least likely to try food from other countries, or food that originates from foreign countries. So you hear it here, folks, that UKIP voters must basically live on moss and deep-fried badgers. I can't think of anything else they would be able to eat. Some real ale in a tankard with some twigs. Don't know what else they would. But I was actually on Facebook last night, fucking around, and I came with an idea, because they make all these unnecessary sequels to shit films. And I thought, they've never done a Snakes on a Plane sequel. So I sort of went through. I sort of said, what ones should we do? What Snakes on a Plane sequels could you come up with? Some of the best ones. My original idea was camels on a unicycle. Some of the other ones I got were slugs in a caravan, mice on a bus, tigers at Mike Tyson's house, Barack Obama in Alabama, donkeys on a Ferris wheel, cock on a ceiling fan, Cluedo in a hot air balloon, Your Mum on My Dick was a pretty good one, Crabs on a Pube, but I decided in the end to go with one. I think, why not? It's easy to make something silly out of a film that's already silly, so why don't we just go with something a bit more, why don't we go with something that's a bit more sort of hard-hitting and a bit more of a satirical sort of social commentary edge, and so I came up with the best one. The sequel to Snakes on a Plane is something that in this day and age is seen as even more terrifying, and that is Muslims on a Plane, where you could have basically the lead role would not be Sam Jackson, it would be it'd have to be someone charismatic and charming. It's very difficult to pick anyone out of that one. You couldn't have Nick Griffin, because that would be just another snake on a plane, a one-eyed snake, or a penis, right, basically. Maybe Gert Wilders. But any of them, really. You can just see them, can't you, during the film, when they do that classic line, but they'll change it, and it'll go, I've had it with these camel-fucking Muslims on this camel-fucking plane, right? And, obviously, just to avoid anyone complaining, just to address balance, because I know these days you can't say one thing about one religious group without someone going, oh, why don't you ever say anything about this? So, just to be fair and address balance, I'll try and commission a third sequel to this film franchise that's going to be called Jews in the Oven. There you go. And speaking of Muslim terrorists, do you remember a few years ago, there was a guy, I think it was an American military camp called Fort Hood, and there was this Muslim guy who apparently snapped and went mental, and he got a gun and killed a load of people, sort of out of the blue at random. Do you remember back then how everyone was talking about, you know, how clearly the guy was just mental and that his beliefs weren't really, you know, weren't really important? Do you remember that? No, neither do I.